Ichiro Oda is back with another banger of a chapter with the release of One Piece's 1114th installment after the 1-week delay caused by Japan's Golden Week, and this one is a doozy. So, what awaits us fans within the pages of Straw Hat's continuing plight on Egghead Island? Well, stick around until the end of this video as we cruise through One Piece chapter 1114 and discover the treasures that Oda-sensei has left his readers. What to expect from One Piece chapter 1114. Alright, so the 1113th chapter of One Piece dropped perhaps the biggest revelation we've had in the Egghead Island arc so far, or maybe even the entire final saga, as Vegapunk's pre-recorded message announces a huge shocker that the whole world is bound to sink to the bottom of the ocean. Well, Oda-sensei doesn't waste any time building on that jaw-dropping cliffhanger as we pick up right where we left off. At the Navy headquarters in the New World, Marine officers are downright outraged upon hearing Vegapunk's announcement. There are a couple notable figures in the base who don't share the same sentiment with their colleagues though. One, you can see Hina along with the other Marines. She doesn't seem bothered with what Vegapunk just said, but we can just chalk that up to her demeanor. What's more interesting though is seeing Akainu puff that cigar of his while he listens intently to the broadcast. We don't know guys, but we're pretty sure something's brewing in that absolute justice-seeking head of his as he hears the old doctor's announcement. Over at Mocktown, Jaya and the other villagers welcome the news with, well, some good old roasting. And honestly, it's on brand for the residents of Mocktown to think this whole deal with the Great Flood is a hoot. That is to say, they're not taking Vegapunk's words seriously, not one bit. The same can't be said for Polly and the citizens of Water 7 though. They think the old doctor is onto something. There's a bit of skepticism here, seeing that it's more likely that if anything's going to sink, it'd be Water 7 because of its location. But the whole world? It's going to take more than just a high tide to do it. Meanwhile, at the maximum security prison that is Impel Down, Doflamingo mocks Magellan about he's going to do his job if Vegapunk's predictions are true. The Vice Warden can't help but entertain Doflamingo, recalling that it only took a 1-meter increase in the water levels when Crab hit the fan at Impel Down before, so something of this magnitude will truly be a problem. Doflamingo adds that most cities in the world can only handle up to about 5 meters of increased water levels, so they're all basically screwed if Vegapunk's telling the truth. And in a stroke of insidious maneuvering, Doflamingo suggests that maybe, just maybe, they should all go somewhere high. At Fishman Island, inside Ryugu Palace, Princess Shirahoshi asks her father, King Neptune, if this great flood is really going to go down. Surprisingly enough, the old king thinks the whole idea of the sea swallowing the world is all nonsense. And now we head back to Egghead Island, the center of the action in this story arc. The Marines on the shores argue among themselves whether Vegapunk's information is legit. In the end though, they pretty much come to the conclusion that it doesn't matter if it's true. Having people know about it is bad news, since it's going to cause mass hysteria and panic. Well, this just goes to show how corrupt the Marines are, right? Withholding information like that from the public just so it can make their jobs patrolling the world and quote-unquote keeping the peace just a tad easier? That's a classic evil dictator move right there. And speaking of evil dictators, we all know where the Marines got these principles. As the Gorosei, the 5 elders, decide to go scorched earth on everyone on Egghead Island. They come to the decision that if they can't stop Vegapunk's message from airing, well, they might as well kill everyone who's heard it. That said, what? Did the 5 elders just turn One Piece chapter 1114's plot into All Quiet on the Western Front? Anyway, we get to see Mars's ugly mug again, beak wide open and all. Probably absolutely elated that he can go full kaiju on the island. You do you, Marcus. Meanwhile, York scampers as she still tries to find a way to stop the broadcast. She might be a traitorous hunk of junk, but she's motivated to get that Celestial Dragon badge if nothing else. At the same time, Vegapunk's message continues as he tells everyone that he's going to make a prediction that there's going to be a planet-wide earthquake days after he had recorded this message. And guess what guys, Vegapunk's hunch actually came to pass, because that earthquake did happen. Smoothie even confirms it when she hears Vegapunk's words. The old doctor's broadcast continues and he says that the earthquake will cause sea levels to rise by 1 meter, which we witness is already happening at this moment. It will ultimately result in numerous islands throughout the world becoming uninhabitable, and it goes without saying that you can say goodbye to most of One Piece's scenic beaches. Somewhere else, Tonjid also listens to the broadcast. Vegapunk says that if his guess is wrong, they can just ignore the rest of what he's going to say. But here we are, the old genius has been acing it so far. Meanwhile, Aokiji quietly listens to the continuing broadcast. Of course, he doesn't utter a word. The former Marine remains ice cold even as Vegapunk's message starts to say that everyone should be afraid, be very afraid, if his predictions come to pass, which they did. More alarming is the fact that Vegapunk says that the earthquake that had just happened in the present wasn't caused by anything natural. At the same time, we get hip to what's going on over at Nami's group, as Jay Garcia Saturn becomes absolutely rabid and starts lashing out at the Straw Hats while he screams for Vegapunk to stop. Anyway, Nami, Lilith, and the others try to fend off Saturn, while Chopper does Nico Robin a solid and boxes her out of harm with Guard Point. None of the crew's attacks work though, as Saturn sends them flying with a strike from one of his venomous spider legs. Robin's no dead weight, however, so she uses her Hana Nomi powers to craft a spider web-shaped net that will catch her team. Saturn tries to follow up his initial attack by stabbing Robin, but Chopper's an absolute unit and he just eats the Elder's claw like a boss. Saturn gets desperate like a Pokemon without any remaining attack points and just lashes out, and it's a bit effective. The creepy arachnid Elder creates an opening for himself to regroup with fellow Elder Mars at the power station. Vegapunk's message continues to play and he reveals that he committed 2 grave sins, the first of which is something akin to hubris, as his search for a renewable source of energy that will help the world ultimately led him to the creation of the Mother Flame. Speaking of the Mother Flame, we get a glimpse of it too as Saturn arrives at the power station and sees it, a smoldering block of flame suspended in water. And in one of the most hilariously pathetic displays of desperation, Saturn turns back to his human form and starts whacking whatever he can get his hands on with his cane. Talk about a bad grandpa. Somewhere else, Marines offshore desperately try to bombard the newly awakened Iron Giant as it makes its way towards its as-yet unrevealed destination. The gargantuan weapon doesn't even turn to see what's hitting it, which just shows us how powerful this thing is. At the heart of Egghead Island, Luffy, Dory, and Brogy continue their duel with Warcury in his Feng Chi form. And guess what? This ugly piggy is now breathing fire as the 2 giant captains retreat to avoid the flames. Vegapunk continues his speech, and he now starts giving everyone a surprise history lesson about the Void Century. And we mean that too, because this piece of One Piece lore is one of those things that the world government has been trying to suppress with all their might. In fact, we even see Emu creeping around as usual while they hear Vegapunk's broadcast at this point. And just to drive the point home that the Void Century is basically taboo knowledge, we see Saint Shalria's reaction upon hearing this, and she doesn't have a single idea what the hell Vegapunk is referring to. At this point in the chapter, the old doctor starts talking about the poneglyphs too, and he says that it's the only way to unlock the true history of their world. Somewhere in a quiet, idyllic forest, Jaguar D. Saul chuckles when he hears this. In Orangetown, Boodle's cute grandkid tells him about the 20 kings that established the world, and the old man wonders if Vegapunk knows about this. The Kuja pirates are also tuning into the broadcast, and we see their speechless reaction to the message. In any case, the broadcast continues and Vegapunk finally reveals his second grave sin, that he betrayed the world government to study the poneglyphs and unlock the secrets of the Void Century. Meanwhile, Nami and her group recover after their tussle with Saturn. And much like us fans, Brook is shouting for Zoro and Jinbei, because seriously, where the hell are those two? It's been, what, 4 chapters since we've seen them? Did they stop over to get some burgers or something? Nami notices that the Cloud Island is stretching, which gives them enough space to hurl the Thousand Sunny down below and towards the sweet escape. Plus, we even get a glimpse of Edison on the ground. He's clearly busted up after taking one for the team earlier, but it's nice to see he's still alive. Vegapunk's broadcast goes on, and he reveals what he found after studying the poneglyphs, that the central character of this hidden history comes from a rich and advanced kingdom 900 years ago. They called him Joy Boy, and Vegapunk basically puts 2 and 2 together to tell everyone that Joy Boy and Sun God Nika are pretty much the same. He continues to state that both these legendary figures had stretchy rubber boy powers and just falls short of blurting out that it's Luffy. Come on, old man, we all know it's Luffy. And speaking of the Straw Hat Captain, he's cooking right now. Luffy's back in his Gear 5 form and he just bonked the snout off of Warcury with his cannonball-shaped fist. It's enough to stop the giant pig from spewing hot fire, but Dory and Brogy start laughing at the boy when they see his giant sore hand right after. Finally, we get another big reveal in this chapter, again courtesy of Vegapunk, as he reveals in the closing panel that Joy Boy isn't just a legendary hero, he's the first pirate ever to set sail in One Piece's world. Our thoughts and theories about One Piece chapter 1114. What a chapter! And here we thought that the reaction shots would just serve as page filler for this chapter. Thankfully, we were wrong, as we got to see a glimpse of the consequences of Vegapunk's continuous revelations. As we saw in chapter 1114, not everyone's convinced with what the old doctor has to say, even in spite of the facts that he's presented. In a way, it's almost like the reactions reflect the fact that nothing's going to change in One Piece's world, even with these alarming bits of information. We'd even go so far as to say that this is all too similar to the real world's fake news-infested, social media-addled world we're living in right now. And it's freaking scary. Other than that, it's great to see some plot movement here in chapter 1114, such as Nami and her group finally getting a chance to escape the island, or seeing the Iron Giant finally do something after reawakened a few issues ago. But past the Mother Flame and all this talk about Joy Boy, we find it interesting that Oda-sensei is hinting at revealing more information about the first 20 kings when Boodle's grandkid mentioned it. And of course, we're simply dying to know, where the hell are Jinbei and Zoro? One last thing before we go though. If there's one scary revelation in One Piece chapter 1114 that had us quaking in our nerdy boots, it's those 3 dreaded words at the end of the issue which read, "Break next week." Why do you punish us so, Oda? What did you think of One Piece chapter 1114? Got theories about the Void Century you want to share? Let's talk about it in the comments, guys. And don't forget to subscribe and ring that notification bell for more amazing anime and manga content. See you soon.